Hey guys, I'm Becky from Book Bite Reviews, and today I will be talking about all the books that I read in the month of May. As always, we will be starting with the books that I liked the least and ending with the books that I liked the most. First up, we have my one and only 1-star book. The rest of the books that I read this month are 3 stars and above, and that book is Bullett, Riddled by Grant M. Whitus. Now with a book like this, you know that I'm being totally honest in all my other videos when I tell you how I feel about things and when I rate things, because I feel pretty bad to give this book a 1 star, but it was just real bad, guys. Real bad. This book is about the first SWAT officer that went into Columbine, and it talks about how he became an officer, what happened that day, and what has happened since. Now, the very first thing that I really did not like about this book is the editing. I don't feel like it was edited or written well at all. A lot of things could have been changed and would have made this a lot better. Another thing is the way that it was printed. It was printed with like dark gray ink on white paper instead of black, so it is really harmful on your eyes and irritating to read it. But also the photo quality on all of these images is really, really poor. You really can't make out most of them, and it was just really badly printed. Like I said, the writing and editing was very poor as well. For one, I do not feel like this SWAT officer and I would get along. I don't like his cocky attitude. My family is all in law enforcement, so it's not like some aversion that I have to authority figures or police officers. I respect police officers, but I do not like the cocky attitude that this guy has, and he says some very questionable things. He talks about people a certain way. He makes very rude comments about liberals, and he also talks about what he would have done differently in certain situations as a police officer. And in all of those instances, I am just like, no, that's super wrong. You shouldn't have done that. I don't know. I really didn't like his attitude, and I feel like if somebody would have like really edited this, they could have talked him into writing it differently to not come off so abruptly. He also did not trust the reader to remember things that he said previously, so a lot of things are repeated later in the book, even though this book is under 200 pages, so you have no problem remembering what was just said. Another thing that I didn't really like is it focused very heavily on his coming up of being a police officer and was mostly just like a book of flaunting his successes and things. It just kind of felt like this was a score book of talking about different cool scenarios that he's been in and how they went right or how they went wrong, which if they went wrong, it was never because of him. There was always somebody else to blame in every scenario. So I just really did not enjoy it. By the end, I was kind of skimming over a lot of parts because he was very technical and talked about things that really would only interest somebody who is in the police force or into those kind of technical details of the different machinery that they use during stuff or the different protocols that they had. It was just boring for me as a reader, so I did skip over a good chunk of that, and I did not really like that this book claims to be the focal point of talking about Columbine and what happened that day, when we really only spend 1 chapter talking about that. The rest is primarily just about this SWAT officer. So I just didn't really like the sense of false advertising that it gave off to me. And overall, it just made me very, very mad, mostly because of the non-PC things that this officer would say. So by the end of it, I was very annoyed. My husband was very happy for me to finish this book because I was constantly complaining while reading it. And yeah, I feel kind of bad to give it a 1 star, but it is what it is. I did not enjoy my experience at all. Didn't learn anything from it. And yeah, 1 star. Next up are the 3-star books this month. The first one is Loner by Teddy Wayne. Now, if you watched my TBR, I did say that I read this because my best friend read it. It ruined her life, as she likes to say, and she wanted me to read it. And I did know what the kind of twist is, but she didn't tell me like the whole ending. So I kind of knew that going in, but I feel like I would have picked that up from the get-go because the clues are definitely there, and I saw it the whole time. So yeah. This book is about a guy who is in college. He's always been a loner. Loner? And he is a college freshman at Harvard, and it's his journey of trying to make friends, but mostly it is about him trying to get the girl of his dreams. And he does some very questionable things in order to try to get her attention, like dating her roommate, and she is very standoffish, and it has a very big twist ending, which I personally, again, think I would have saw coming the whole time, even if I didn't know about it. But the ending, I thought something else was going to happen, and I would have been much more cool with it than what does end up happening at the end of this book. It took me by a big surprise, and the consequences of this ending is so just like, yeah, that's what happens in the real world, and it just makes you depressed, and just think about how awful the world that we live in is. So, yeah, I think that if you pick this up, you may enjoy it. It may ruin your life too. I don't think it ruined my life, but it just made me angry. But that was the point of this book, is to make you angry and to realize these things. And that's all I'm going to say, because I don't want to give anything away, but just know that there is a twist, and the ending, wow. But yeah, I gave it 3 stars. It was enjoyable-ish, and it was creepy, and I just kind of felt meh about it. I really wasn't, like, if I would have picked this up on my own, I don't think I would have finished it. But I did because my friend told me to. I felt very gross by the end of it and angry. That's the whole point of the book, so I don't fault it, because that's what it's supposed to make you feel. And yeah, I gave it 3 stars. The other 2 3-star books this month I will be talking about together because they are part of a series, and that is Kelley Armstrong's Sea of Shadows series. Book 1 is Sea of Shadows, and book 2 is Empire of Night. I feel very good about giving these books 3 stars, as it is like no doubt in my mind that these are 3-star books. I am currently finishing up the 3rd book, and I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know if it's going to stay at 3, go lower, go higher. I'm just not sure just yet. I'll find out by the end. I don't know a whole lot of what to say. I finished them. I listened to them on audio. They were interesting, but my biggest problem was that nothing happens in these books. They are a whole lot of telling instead of showing, and it kind of just like reminded me of Lord of Rings in the fact of that it's just a whole lot of walking around doing nothing, and then it's over. And that's kind of what happened in these books. I don't fault Kelley Armstrong. I'm still going to try some of her other books. I have read the reviews on these, and other fans of hers have said that this is not what they have come to expect from her. So I'm not sure if she just didn't really know what she was doing. I don't think this is like her normal genre to write in, this kind of like fantasy, mythical kind of genre. So I am still going to try out other books from her, but these I just feel so okay with giving a 3-star because they were interesting and I finished them, but they just, yeah. Now it is time to talk about the 4-star books of this month, and the first one is Technically You Started It by Lana Wood Johnson. Now I am going to do a separate review video for this book because I was so graciously sent this book from Scholastic upon my request, which I am so happy about. So I will not go into too many details, but just know that I did really enjoy this book. It is a different medium as it's not told in prose, it is told in text throughout the entire book. So it was very interesting to read. I read it in one night. And yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say for now. If you want to hear all of my thoughts about this, please check out my review video that will be coming out in a couple of weeks. The next 4-star book is The Black Key by Amy Ewing. This is the final book in the Lone City series. The first book is The Jewel. And I feel kind of bad that I gave this 4 stars, but I just felt underwhelmed by the ending. And I also don't think that I was in the right headspace to read it. The series is very dark, very depressing, and I just wasn't in the mood for that kind of book. So my gut reaction when I finished this book was to give it 3 stars, but the more that I thought about it, I really think it was the headspace that I was in, and I decided to go ahead and give it a 4-star because I did finish it and enjoy it, but it just made me so depressed, and I didn't want to read a depressing book, but I wanted to finish the series, and I felt like the only thing really wrong with it when I thought about it, because the first 2 books I gave 5 stars, and this book is not any worse than the first 2. So the only thing that I thought about rationally that I did not like was the ending. I felt like it left a lot of things too undone, but at the same time, we know just as much as the characters do. So it kind of like is what it is. I do like that it kind of leaves room where there could be a spin-off series or prequels. And yeah, I think that's like all I can really say about it. I am happy, very, very happy that I have picked up the series finally and finished it. I definitely recommend you read it. I think it's a little bit of I wanted more than what I got, and also that I wasn't in the right headspace, and also that I don't really want the series to end, but it is. So, 4 stars. And now the last 4-star book of the month is Twilight by Stephenie Meyer. This one, of course, is a reread for me, which made me kind of sad because I don't really like to reread books because I never end up liking them, or I'm never engaged enough to like them as much as I did the first time, unless it has been a very long time and I do not remember a whole lot. Now, with Twilight, this is one of my all-time favorite series ever. So I remember everything, and what kind of irked me was that I wasn't really enjoying my read just because I know everything that's going to happen, and that's not fun for me where I know everything. It would have been better if it's been a long time and I didn't remember, but I remember everything. I watch the movies all the time. I know what happens. So I wasn't really crazy about that aspect. And also I did realize that if I would have picked up these books today, I would not like them as much as I do now. I have found that I really enjoy the beginning part and I really love the ending, but the middle part where her and Edward proclaim their feelings for each other is like so crazy insta-love. Like so crazy insta-love. And the way that he kind of behaves, he's like pretty annoying and controlling a little bit. So I just didn't like that whole, like, finally professing our feelings, because I was like, whoa, it's been a day, guys. It's been a day. But that's how it was back then. You just fell in love in a day, and it was fine. So now I do recognize that I would not be okay with that today, but I do really still love the series. I'm so happy that I don't end up hating this book, but towards the end, I was like, oh, this kind of makes me sad because I kind of wanted to reread the entire series eventually. But by the ending, like, I got that spark back, and I think I am going to go ahead and reread the rest of the series. The books do get better as they go on. The next book is not my favorite book. It's my least favorite book. I don't like Jacob. But I do still plan on rereading the rest of the series. The original plan this month was to read the 10th anniversary edition of this, which I did physically read that edition, but I didn't read the second half, the Life and Death remastering. I read the first chapter, and it's honestly really good. Like, there's a foreword from Stephenie Meyer saying that she was so excited when she decided to do the project of gender swapping everybody, because people have said that criticisms of this book is that it's a damsel in distress and blah, 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 and Stephenie is going to prove that it's just based on the fact that Belle is a human, not that she's a woman, for the reason that she is always in trouble because they're vampires. They have superhuman strength, and she does not. She also said that she has been wanting to redo Twilight anyways because she has grown as an author in the 10 years, and there are some things that she would have liked to said differently in clunky writing, and just she's always wanted the opportunity to rewrite it. So the first chapter of the Life and Death is so good. Like, I really am enjoying it, and I can't wait to keep going. I'm a little nervous though because I mean, like, it's like almost word for word Twilight, just with different genders and different names, but it's written so good. So I don't know when I'm going to end up finishing that. I'm not going to end up finishing it in June. I'm not even going to pick it up again in June, I don't think. Who knows? We'll see. I read Twilight. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 4-star upon a reread because it's never going to be a 5-star like the first time. I just don't know how you guys can reread books and still give it 5 stars because you know everything. I don't know. There is one more 4-star read, which I totally forgot about because I've already returned it to the library, and that was my reread of Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. This book was this month's book club pick, and it is a young adult graphic novel short story collection of scary stories. And just like the first time, I gave it the same rating, a 4-star. I really, really like the artwork of it. I found it to be just as creepy as the first time that I read it, and I really enjoyed it. Some of my book club members had differing thoughts about it. Some didn't even finish it because of how creepy it was. Others just weren't that impressed. And then I did have one book club member who said that I set her expectations way too high because I said how much I really enjoyed it. And so she went in like thinking this is going to be like the best, and it wasn't to her. So I was like, I'm sorry. From now on, I'll be like, this book is trash. Read it and see, even if it's good. But yeah, I still enjoyed my reread of this, and yeah, 4 stars. All right, now it is time to talk about the 2 5-star picks of the month. The very first one is my Rub Club pick this month, and that was Odd One Out by Nic Stone. Now, I went in thinking that this book was going to at least be a 4-star book because I probably would have picked this up on my own, but it turned out to be a 5-star book, and I really, really loved it. It was just so good. I listened to it on audio, and the audio is perfection, you guys. We have a full cast, and it was just so good. There are a couple problems which I did recognize, but I loved everything else so much that I just went ahead and gave it a 5-star like I wanted to, because it just deserves it. Like, it's just so good. The only problems that I had with it is that there is a element of this darker mystery, and it kind of is cheaply done. Like, I expected a lot more from it, but they kind of just like hurried up and like wrapped it up and everything was fine. So I didn't really like that aspect of it. But it wasn't the main focus of the book, which is why I went ahead and just disregarded it. The other problem that I had was the ending felt too mature for this age. Something really bad happens in this book between the characters, and it was super on point with what a teenager would have thought to do. It was super wrong, but they're teenagers, and you sometimes have these crazy ideas that you think are going to work, even though they don't. But the problem I had was how everyone dealt with it at the end. It just seemed like it was super unrealistic for teens to behave that way. It felt like how maybe adults would behave, like super rational adults, not even regular adults, super rational adults would have handled the situation this way. But teenagers, I just feel like no teenager would be that understanding and forgiving. So I did have that fault, but everything else was so good. I was dying to pick it up again and listen to it. It was very interesting. I loved the talk about feminism and the talk about your sexual identity. People have already labeled themselves as a certain thing in this book in the beginning, and they evolve over time. And I just really loved that talk, because we talk about that it's okay to be LGBTQ+, but there are no books that talk about what if you think that you're a lesbian and it turns out that you are straight, or you think you're something else. Like, nobody talks about that talk, about how you think you have labeled yourself something and it turns out that you're not in that box, and that sexuality cannot be put into a one-size-fits-all box, that there is some questioning and fluidity to it, and it's okay. Like, I've never found a book that talks about that. It's always like figuring out that you're something, and not figuring out you're something and then finding out you're something different. So I just really enjoyed it. It's just such a good book that needs to be talked about, and we also have a diverse cast, so amazing. Like, so amazing. And I'm definitely going to check out more from Nic Stone. And finally, the last 5-star book of this month is Days of Blood and Starlight by Laini Taylor. Guys, this book was so freaking good. It was so much better than book 1, which I don't think I've ever found. I don't think I've ever had a series where I say that book 2 is better than book 1. I can't think of anything. Like, this was just so well done. It's so crazy how many characters we meet in this and how many different points of view that we get. I am amazed that I did not get confused at all. I just really loved that every chapter ends on a cliffhanger, and because we have all of these different points of view, the next chapter is a totally different character, like on the other side of the world. So you are just like left in this like limbo of like, but I want to know what happens to them, but I also need to know what happens to this character too. It's just, Laini Taylor is just a master at writing, and this book is so good. I loved it so much more than book 1, and I really enjoyed book 1, but this one's so much better. I cannot wait to read book 3. I have no idea how all of this is going to be wrapped up in one book, but I guess we're going to find out. So good. I so enjoyed my experience reading it, and if you have not picked up the series, please go ahead and do it, and if you don't enjoy book 1, just at least read book 2 because it's so much better. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Please leave a comment below telling me if you have read any of these books and what you thought of them. If you liked this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you loved it and you want to see more bookish content from me, please hit that subscription button. And if you want to be notified as soon as my videos go live here on YouTube, hit the notification bell. I'll see you in my next one. Bye!